All right, guys, welcome back to Strictly Sports podcast. We are glad to be here with y'all. It's been a little bit since we've had our last show. I think about 4 weeks now since. Did we? I don't even remember. It's been so long. Did we wrap up the Super Bowl? Did we do a show right
Yeah.
after the Super Bowl? Okay, so we did talk
Yeah, we
about
did a
that.
wrap-up show.
Okay, so we did talk about that a little bit, but today we want to talk about a lot of the free agency that's going on, as well as every other thing that is pretty much happening in the sports world right now. As far as the Players Championship wrapping up, and yes, I do sound like I'm in a garbage can. I got to get a different mic. This is a temporary situation, so I know it sounds like a tin can, but I'm working on it. But yeah, so we're gonna talk about
You sound like Phil Collins. You sound like Phil Collins right now when he's singing. It's like the effect they have on his voice.
It's like a crazy garbage can effect. Yeah, this microphone was free, so thanks, Booty, if you're watching this. This was the mic you gave Dave Callie, and that he gave to me to mess around with. So I'll go back to my other mic.
That's
next week,
awesome.
But
You
yeah,
have
so
to serenade us by the end of the show.
let's kick it right off, and just to kind of let you guys know, I think we are planning on being live next week as well to talk a little bit more about the NCAA tournament and kind of the first week, and then we'll kind of have a little bit of a schedule with things like the Masters and kind of get towards the Combine and other things. So we will not be live every week, but just look out on Facebook and Instagram, where we'll be sharing kind of when we'll go live. But let's kick it off with some free agency news. So a lot has happened already, and there's been a lot of talk about the deals that have happened with the Patriots among other teams and them spending a lot of money in day one in the tampering day. But Trav, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I think that was the big news is what the Pats did. And I mean, for me, I like some of their signings, but a lot of them overall, I didn't love what they did. I mean, they were really active, obviously, which is kind of unlike them. But to me, obviously they're trying to put weapons around Cam. I like the Hunter Henry signing. I thought they overpaid for Jonnu Smith, a guy who's really unproven, and they go and throw him like 3 years at like 50-something million. I didn't quite understand the money there and the value. And they add, to me, the question is like, at wide receiver has been the question for years with them. And they go and they get Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. We've had some fun with Nelson Aguilar on this show. So I feel like the four of us is like, when you think of him, what do you think of? We think of that dude who made the joke about him.
Unlike Aguilar.
Unlike Aguilar.
And so I think a lot of people associate Nelson Aguilar with a drop artist, a guy who can't catch the ball. Obviously, Philly got rid of him pretty early in his career. He had a nice little year with Vegas last year, but that was as the third or fourth option.
Yeah.
Like, who does New England have that's going to draw coverage where he can be a threat against a number 3 cornerback or something? So you pay Nelson Aguilar 2 years, $26 million, and you pay Kendrick Bourne whatever you paid him. You still don't have a number 1 receiver. Some could argue you don't even have a good number 2 receiver. Maybe you have 2 solid tight ends. Like I said, I like Hunter Henry, but what they paid and what they ended up really getting in a quarterback that really can't utilize like the tight end weapons that they have, or maybe any of the weapons, I just look at it and I say, overall they spent a lot of money, and I think they didn't fill the major needs and really get done what they needed to get done on the offensive side of the ball. I like their defensive moves, but I feel like they need more offense than they need defense. And overall, signing Cam Newton, which wasn't one of their big signings, they re-signed him before free agency started, but he's not the guy. We know he's not the guy of the future. So I'm still like, yeah, they're active. And then like Matthew Judon's a great signing. A couple other moves on defense. I like Jalen Mills. I don't know if you're a big fan of Jalen Mills or not, watching him in Philly, Dan. But I thought he was a pretty good.
He's versatile. He can play a couple.
Yeah,
different
I thought
positions.
overall he's a pretty good corner, and they didn't
check
break the
that.
bank for him. So it's like I like the defensive moves, but I already like them on defense. What they need to do is get better on offense, and they put a lot of money, and I don't think they got a lot of value for the money they spent.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think the money they spent, I mean, I know what they were trying to do, and they needed to upgrade the wide receiver position. But if you were going to make some upgrades, they did spend more than those guys that they got were worth. And if you were going to try to really upgrade that position, make it an actual like noticeable upgrade. And with the guys that they brought in, it wasn't that noticeable an upgrade for the money they spent. So it would have been worth it to spend a little bit more money to get a better upgrade, in my opinion.
Yeah, to me, you could have,
especially with Cam Newton where he has in his career right
at
now.
13 million. They could have probably. I mean, I don't think Juju's going to end up getting much more than 13. I don't think Will Fuller's going to get much more than 13. You could have got one of those guys for 13 million, and I like that a lot better.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't really have. Go ahead, buddy.
No, go ahead, Dan.
No, I was just going to say, I think that Belichick really hated his defense last year, obviously, because he's putting all the money. But they still have the draft. I'm going to reserve judgment till after the draft because I think they're going after quarterback. I don't think they're sold on Cam, but to have a veteran guy there, and Belichick, he is what he is, whether you hate him or not. But he's going to run the football and play defense and see where that takes him. So
right, and I understand that. I'm with you. Like I don't think they think Cam is long term. I think they signed Cam thinking like if we can't find anything better, he's better than what we have and what else. There's not a whole lot else out there free agent wise that they could realistically go get. So, but my thing is, if you really are just like, well, we're not going to put a lot of money in the receiver, and we are going to run the ball or whatever, and maybe use Cam's legs. Why are you paying out Nelson Aguilar, who's not that good, $13 million a year?
Yeah,
that's my issue.
I don't like that signing. I can't like that signing as a Philly fan.
Oh yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like I didn't know that he would ever get signed again in football because he dropped the football so much. I've seen guys that were,
but not only did he get signed,
like Deontay Johnson.
Dude, he got a good deal.
He got a good
How does he get $13 million a year? How does Nelson
Right.
Aguilar, who hasn't really done a whole lot in the league, he's been a disappointment as far as where he was drafted. He's been a major disappointment as far as where he was drafted.
Yeah, I agree.
Like you said, he did have a bit of
a
he did have a bit of a bounce back year with the Raiders, but not enough to be like, oh, this guy.
Yeah.
I can definitely see he's going to be like a top notch receiver.
It
He's
should,
not.
it's like
Belichick's going to end up benching him.
Yeah.
But Belichick's going to end up benching him like he did like all these other guys on his team. He's going to have $13 million. He's going to end up finding a guy in like the 7th round from like, West Texas, Illinois State, or something stupid like that.
It's going to be a little slot guy, man. It's always a little.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the thing about the Patriots, though. They don't typically draft receivers very well, in all honesty. And I think that I read
I'd probably be in the free agent.
They don't sign him in free agency very well, apparently,
exactly.
either.
I read something today that said that I think it was.
How the heck did they win 7 Super Bowls?
Maybe Diana Rossini was saying like she had heard from some receiver that like it was not a good year for receivers, not a good market right now for receivers, which could explain why Juju hasn't signed a deal yet. We haven't seen anything from the other guys that they rate high, like Curtis Samuel, which we can talk about on a separate.
Fuller and
separate
Galladay.
And Galladay,
give me Marvin Jones over Aguilar any day. Like he just signed.
He did.
He got
he
signed
did, but that's what I'm saying.
Super cheap too.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, so why not? Like I feel Marvin Jones is a much more complete wide receiver.
I like Marvin Jones a lot, but he's I think he's on the north side of 30 about now, so he's kind of coming to an end. He's been around
for a while.
So, but I
didn't realize he was around for the zone. Yeah,
he was with Cincy for a while, and then he put like 3 or 4 years in with Detroit,
yeah.
And so he's probably about 30.
That's true.
Yeah,
so I think age is why I wouldn't go on him. But just one more thought on that is I love Belichick as a coach. I don't necessarily think he's the greatest GM. I don't think he's a bad GM, but I think they won their Super Bowls on his coaching, not his GM. So
yeah, I would agree.
And,
so
and a quarterback that was pretty good.
Right, clearly Brady showed that he had a lot to do with it. So, so let's talk a little bit about some of the other free agency stuff as we still have a few more minutes on that. We didn't talk any at all about J.J. Watt since that happened a couple weeks ago. That was kind of like the first domino to fall. I do want to hear a little bit from you guys, but also I wanted to know if you guys had heard about Andy Dalton going to the Bears and what you think about that.
Heard about that. I heard about that's a pretty good deal for him too. Wasn't it a 1 year $10 million?
That's
Aggie, just tell us what you think about Andy.
$10 million is like typical backup money though. So that's
is it, man. That's
just what you make as a quarterback. Like if you're a backup that isn't even a good backup, you're making $6-8 million. I mean that's just quarterback.
Well, as we'll talk about later, if you're a pretty good starter, you make $40 million a year now. So
yeah.
Well, we're gonna get into that, Aggie. Just don't go there yet. Don't go there.
Wait.
Just for some foreshadowing, okay?
We're gonna get there in a couple minutes.
I think the Bears are doing something similar to what New England's doing. They sign a veteran. They're gonna obviously look for a quarterback in the draft.
Yeah.
If for some reason they don't find a guy or can't get him where they want to get him or whatever, you can roll with Andy Dalton. We've seen that he can win 10 to 11 games in the NFL a year. He's never had any playoff success, so that's really the one thing on his resume, but he can get you some wins. So
he's got to have help though.
Dan, are you coming around? Dan, are you coming around on Andy Dalton finally here? Because I know
wait,
I'm not nothing but a hater last year.
Wait. Dan, what is his nickname?
Yes.
What is Andy Dalton called?
Red Rifle.
I got it.
Are you past the
No, but let me just say this real quick.
He's definitely got some more respect than he did about week 6 when he came in as a starter for
Dallas. In comparison to Dak, y'all were comparing him to Dak, and I was just like, that's a whole different league. Andy Dalton's not there. So that's where the disrespect came in that discussion. But Andy Dalton's a respectable, QB. Yeah. He can get you some wins.
I think we all would say it's better than Mitch Trubisky, and it's definitely, to me, it's definitely better than Nick Foles as well. So I'm actually a little bit intrigued as to what he could do, because you see what the combination of Trubisky and Foles did last year with terrible quarterback play. They still went 9-7, I think, and got into the playoffs at the last seed. I know they got in the playoffs with the last seed. I think it was at 9-7. So even if Dalton's just a little bit better than that, maybe they can win another 10 games and do something with that defense. But another thing I thought was interesting, that I know the J.J. Watt thing, it's a little old now, but I was surprised he did what he did. But I thought he would maybe go to somewhere more of a clear-cut contender. But whatever, if that was his choice, that's what he wanted to do. You know, he got out of there, and they're at least in a better spot, obviously a much better spot than Arizona. But one team that's out there that made a couple signings that I really like is Tennessee. Yeah. They went and got Bud Dupree. They need, we talked about this all year with them. They need defensive help.
Yeah.
You know, their offense is pretty well set.
Johnny's so pained.
Johnny's not happy about it.
The thing is, I'm just bummed at all the people we lost. We lost Mike Hilton to Cincinnati. We lost
Pittsburgh.
You know,
I saw that.
Look, Pittsburgh, they were going to be in a bad spot, and they're going to lose. We're losing guys one by one. I mean, it is what it is. It's not a huge shocker. I'm actually more disappointed that we lost Mike Hilton, because realistically, we knew we weren't signing Bud Dupree. That was, and we're pretty sure we're losing Juju, which I'm thinking maybe there's hope now, because the wide receiver market's so slow, that maybe he would take like a 1-year deal with Pittsburgh and then maybe reset next year. Now, once the salary cap goes back up,
was what Ian Rappaport said. He said he thinks.
Yeah, maybe he take a 1-year deal, play out Ben's last year, which I think we all assume it'll be his last year, and then go try to get your big deal next year. But at any rate, Tennessee, and then they went and got Danico Autry, a good D lineman from the Colts. So they're bolstering their front four. They're getting some guys who can get some pressure on the quarterback and just making their defense better overall. I think those two guys can be, especially with Bud Dupree potentially being a game changer, those two guys can maybe make their defense make the next step, and as a result could have their team making the next step to where maybe they can really contend deep into the AFC playoff picture next year. But I like what they did with those two moves.
It all depends on like how Bud Dupree comes back from his injury, but overall, if he comes back and is the same guy,
provided
you know what I mean.
Yeah, provided he makes an impact.
He got a 5-year deal though, coming off an ACL. To me, that's
I do agree with that. I thought that was crazy too. Yeah, I agreed, Jody. That was
honestly,
you don't really hear that too often.
I think 16.5 is a little high for Bud, because Bud basically had 1.5 good years. Like, we waited 4 years for him to get good in Pittsburgh, and then he had a huge year, and then he got franchised. And the last year he had another, probably not, I wouldn't say as huge as it was the year before,
but a great year.
And a lot of that was he became really good as TJ Watt became really good. So let's see when he doesn't have TJ Watt, on the other side, if he can be as good, which is another question. But overall, at least Tennessee is doing something to address their defense, and I like what they're doing with that. Yeah. So we'll see if it pans out, if it's worth $16.5 million. But I mean, Shaq Barrett got
Watt family, like,
Shaq Barrett got $18 million, and I wouldn't say he's much better than Bud Dupree.
Yeah.
Agreed. Or any better.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But yeah, speaking back to like free agency, go ahead. Sorry, Ag.
Well, I was gonna say, going back to like what Jody was originally talking about, JJ Watt, that was the big headline. Like, he wanted to get our thoughts on that. I kind of wanted to see what y'all thought too, because I saw a lot of people roasting him, basically be like, oh, he wanted to go to a contender, and then he went to Arizona. Who most people don't think they're a legit contender right now. What did y'all think about that?
I think it's what Trav said earlier. It's like it shocked me a little bit. I was expecting a team that was going to be a real competing team, but I don't know. It's just I wasn't butthurt or anything by it. I didn't want us to sign him. I didn't want the Steelers to sign him, because everybody was like, oh, it's either going to be a really good contender or it's going to be the Steelers. They were thinking Buffalo. A lot of people thought Buffalo.
Aggie, I would say to you, I don't think J.J. Watt makes them like, oh, that's the next step they needed to make them a contender.
Right.
To me, they're still just a fringe. To me, they're still just a fringe playoff team.
Yeah, they'll make the playoffs, maybe like be competitive in a game, but not a deep run at all.
Yeah, I don't see J.J. Watt at this age. He's not what he used to be. If he stays healthy.
Do you give him any criticism? Do you give him any criticism for being like, I want to go somewhere where I can win, and then going to Arizona? Do you kind of like scratch your head a little bit? No, because
it's not like he went. I think he wanted to go somewhere to win, but these guys, most of these guys, it's about, I want to go somewhere to win, and who's going to pay me at least as close to what another guy will pay me.
Get some money and have a chance to win.
So I mean, it's a little bit of like, oh yeah, but I mean, everybody does it. So, like, oh yeah, you say you want to win, but Arizona,
they're definitely in a better winning posision than Houston right now.
Right. I think in his mind, it's like, all right, they were 9-7 or 8-8 and just missed the playoffs. If I go there and they make a couple more moves, we'll be legit.
They're definitely on the
Houston's on the down.
Yeah.
Dan, you got a thought on that?
Yeah. I actually have I was just one other little piece of like interesting free agent news that I saw today, and that's obviously New England cut James White, and it's already rumored that he's looking to go down to Tampa and reconnect with Brady down in down in Tampa. So
Oh God!
I just want to hear what you guys thought.
Brady can have
how many
whoever he
freaking
wants. I mean, I
how
don't
many
care.
butt sniffers of Brady and their former players are there out there? Like, oh, I just want to
Yeah.
go play with Tom.
We'll leave
Like,
it.
just
We'll
get
leave it
outta
at that.
here. Whatever.
But-
go be butt buddies, and,
So it's
and
a-
y'all can all sing Kumbaya. And
It's a crazy free agency period already. One of the craziest ones we've seen because of the salary cap issues and all that stuff. But the Tampering Tuesday thing definitely makes it. I don't know if this is the first year that they've allowed the legal tampering, or if it's been going on for a couple years.
no, it's been going on a year or two.
Okay,
I don't like it. I
pretty-
don't like it as much.
Yeah, well, I mean, just a couple of more notable ones before we switch to our next topic, which is talking about Dak. Is that Tyrod Taylor gets a second chance as a backup in Houston. He signed a deal there, and then the Saints have decided to sign Jameis Winston. So we'll see if they make him the starter and what that looks like
Washington
for the
signed a
Saints.
quarterback too, and I
Ryan
can't remember who it
Fitzpatrick.
is.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fitzmagic.
Yep.
So speaking of quarterback signing deals, we're gonna spend about five minutes
Yeah.
here on
Aggie.
Dak Prescott finally getting his deal after the broken ankle. Of all times, it seems a little bit kind of crazy that they would do it, but I guess they wanted to get it done before free agency and kind of solidify that, so they knew moving forward what they were looking at as far as free agents and in the draft coming up. So Aggie, let's get your thoughts first as the resident Cowboy fan.
It's a little bit mixed feelings. It's nice. All right, so first off, I think Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. Okay, I have never said that he wasn't a good quarterback. However, I would have liked it better if we could have not spent $40 million a year on him. Granted, the way we structured the deal on the front side, this season will actually save us like $15 million to the cap versus if we had franchised him again this year. So in that regard, it kind of helps us in this year perspective. But long term, obviously it's contingent on how he comes off this injury. And if he comes off this injury at full 100% health and all of his abilities intact, how he was before the injury, I mean, I'm not super mad at the deal. I would have liked to spend less money, but it seems like the way that the quarterback market is going, 3 or 4 years from now, $40 million a year might not be that bad of a deal.
No.
So
let me.
You know what I
when
mean?
you say,
so that's kind of to me the going rate for a good quarterback right now.
when you say very good, or when you say good rather, like on a scale, like let me give you a scale and you can tell me like
like
not,
top 10 type person.
No,
or?
doesn't deserve. The way I categorize quarterbacks is probably shouldn't be a starter. And then you have average, who's like your run-of-the-mill average quarterback. And then you have good quarterbacks who are like maybe top 15. But then you have very good quarterbacks. And then you have your top like 3 or 5 that are elite. So for me, it's like that 5 to 10. Do you put him in the 5 to 10 or do you put him in the 10 to 15?
He's kind of on the fringe in between those two, in my opinion. He's definitely not in the top elite category right now. He has shown signs here and there that he has the ability to play that way. But can you do that consistently all the time? I don't think so. He's had games here and there where he's played very well, but he hasn't shown enough consistency with that for me.
Yeah, I think, Aggie, you hit the nail on the head when you said going rate. They were in a spot where it was, I feel like they kind of had to do it. I don't like the fact that he's basically making more money than Patrick Mahomes, but whoever's next up in the quarterback thing, no matter if you're the best or not, you generally are going to make and usually it's because the salary cap raises every year. And so they continually reset it. But this year it didn't. But I don't think Dak's people were willing to take that as an excuse to be like, nah, because you could have done this deal last year, even the year before potentially, and you didn't. So now we're not giving you a discount. And Jerry kind of waited it out, and a lot of people were ripping him and giving all this credit to Dak for waiting it out and stuff. I'm like, that's fine, that's great. I mean, if your in-game goal is to just get the most money possible, which most of these athletes it is. But I like a point that Darren Orlovsky was bringing up when everybody's basically like, even before he got signed, and Orlovsky's like, look, I don't blame the Cowboys for drawing a line in the sand and being like, we have other needs. We can only pay you a certain amount and still make this team good around you. Yeah. Okay. You signed Dak and everybody's happy, right? But now you have no money. You have so much money tied up into him, Amari Cooper, and Ezekiel Elliott that you can't build a team around him. Your defense has a ton of needs. Your offensive line now and other spots on offense have a ton of needs. Not so much on offense. I mean, I think it's mainly the defense. But you're not going to
have offensive line is
right now.
Offensive line is not what it was. We need to rebuild that.
Right, they need to rebuild that. But I'm saying, other than that, skill-wise, y'all pretty much have.
We need a complete overhaul on defense.
Right, you need a complete. Yeah, and you're not going to be able to do it. You can only do so much during the draft and expect those to get filled immediately.
It takes time for those young players to get good.
It takes them time to develop. So, all right, everyone can cheer that they signed Dak. But you know what's not going to happen? Y'all aren't making any deep runs in the playoffs anytime soon until that stuff gets fixed. And with Dak making so much and these other guys that they've paid now, including Dak, it's probably not going to happen. And I just hear everyone saying, like, it doesn't matter that he's making so much money. They just had to sign him. All right, well, what's the goal? Just to sign a star quarterback that's good, or is the goal to win? Now, I'm not – but the other side of it is if they cut Dak, what are they going to do?
Right.
So I get it. I don't blame him for, you kind of have to. There are very few GMs. John Elway did it with Brock Osweiler like years ago, right? Osweiler, had a nice little half a season or whatever, and he was due to basically get paid, and he thought he had a certain thing, and then John Elway was just like, no, we're not paying you what another team. We know another team will pay you, but go. And what happened? Osweiler went to Texans. He got paid, and he wasn't the starter basically a year later.
Yeah.
Now, did Denver get any better? No, they haven't found anybody better. So I'm not saying that, that Dallas should have not done it. It's just the people
you're kind of hamstrung, man.
There's no right or wrong way.
Yeah, my issue is the people that are
rocking a hard
Jerry,
place.
and I'm for the first guy to rip Jerry Jones for trying to be a GM when you need to just be an owner and get a GM. But in this case, the people that rip him for like you should have just paid him a long time ago, or you should have just it's a no-brainer. It's not a no-brainer because you're paying so much to a guy who is not a top 5 quarterback, is borderline top 10, and you're paying him more than all those other top 10 guys. And you know what I mean? So I wouldn't have blamed him if he moved on. I'm not saying he should have. I'm just saying like there's two sides to it, and it's not
I think
they should have signed him.
Yeah, either move they made, you could have understood.
You weren't in a good spot either way.
You're between a rock and a hard place, and there's going to be a lot of doubt no matter which decision you make.
Dan, what do you think?
Listen, I have one final thought on this, and this is really according to Aggie's logic last year. They could have paid the Red Rifle $10 million and got rid of Dak, and they would have been just as good. So
we'll find out how he does with the Bears.
Yeah, if he gets a chance, I know he'll compete for sure. But
Bears have a much better defense than the Cowboys, though. Let me say that.
Yeah, I think we can agree with that. So we touched a little bit earlier about how Jameis was signed by the Saints, and obviously that comes from the fallout of the decision of the last couple of days from Drew Brees with his retirement. We're going to keep this little segment kind of brief, but I did want to kind of go around and like let everybody kind of have a chance to kind of just one little talking point on Brees and kind of like what their thoughts are on him retiring, hanging it up. Should he have done it sooner? Like kind of what his career looked like, what y'all's thoughts were on that. So Dan, why don't you start us on that one?
Yeah, I have one really short point, and it's really just that it's finally time for the Saints to put Taysom Hill on the field. For the first time, it is finally legitimately the right time. And so that I'm not obviously joking, but hey, Drew Brees gave us a lot of years where we were just watching a quarterback that was really dogged for a lot of his early career, being too short. He did a lot of amazing things. I'll always remember just how he was so efficient in the Super Bowl against the Colts, and how he took down Peyton Manning. I think that was one of the top QB performances that I've ever seen in a Super Bowl. If he wasn't as efficient as he was, I don't know that they win that game.
I feel like that's a debate for another day, but go ahead, Aggie.
Yeah, I don't know that he took down Peyton because he didn't play defense, but anyway, I like Drew Brees. I've always liked him. He's been one of my, favorite players to watch. I just think he's a great guy too. So yeah, he's a definite Hall of Famer. And as far as if it was too late, he should have hung it up earlier. You can always debate that. I definitely think it's the right time to do it right now, though, just based on what we've seen. And you are seeing some of the physical skills diminish a little bit. And but yeah, I mean, a great career, a great guy, and look forward to him getting inducted in the Hall of Fame in about 5 years. So,
yep.
Yeah, I think it was time. I went on this at the end of the year. He just wasn't the same. He held their team back at the end of the year. So I'm anxious to see what they get, in place, whether it's going to be Taysom or it's going to be Jameis, and see if they can be better. I know it sounds crazy to think that they're going to be better, but I mean, their team is set to win if they can keep most of the pieces in place here.
Yeah, they have a lot of talent
with a good quarterback. But as far as his legacy, I mean, like I said, it was time for him to go, and I'm glad he did. But as far as his legacy, him, Peyton, and Tom, those three is the greatest quarterback class, is the greatest quarterback era
trio. Yeah,
I've ever. I think. I mean, just because, and I know it's hard to compare eras, and we talked about it, but what they did as far as pre-snap, and this was led by Peyton, pre-snap, and the ability to just pick defenses apart pre-snap and then execute it post-snap, and then still be able to physically do it too, making the throws and throwing the ball at a level we've never seen the last 20 years because of those three basically leading it. And him being.
And you saw those three like a lot of the records.
I don't think the future of the quarterback position is going to ever, is maybe not ever, but this future that we're seeing it run into is going to be nearly as good as what we've seen the last 20 years with him being a big part of that.
I think we've already seen that. I mean, with the last 10 years, we've already seen where like even having like such a great quarterback as like having Patrick Mahomes and how good Aaron Rodgers has been, and maybe Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson, even that they still aren't at the pinnacle. And to me, I like to compare it to the big three with tennis. when you have Djokovic, Rafa, and Federer kind of going back and forth, like Aggie said, with all these records, like if any of the two were not there and it was just the one, they would have dominated the league. I mean, we saw how much Brady dominated, and Peyton had his Super Bowls that he got, and Breeze was successful as well in the NFC. But without the other ones there, it wouldn't have been the way it was. But hats off to him for a great career, and like you said, Aggie, we'll see him in.
Absolutely.
I heard something about maybe him going to NBC. Or
yeah, he already had that lined up. He
already had a deal.
Oh, okay, nice.
They had that lined up where he's set up to go be in a, I think,
like on the Sunday night show.
Yeah, it's gonna be like
pre-game. Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be cool to watch. Cool. But let's shift gears a little bit.
Go the Romo route, which is nice.
No, we'll shift gears a little bit and move over to some March Madness. So as you guys can remember, it was about this week last year when everything kind of went downhill with coronavirus, and
yeah, it was very sad.
And it was just like, they were talking about like, oh, the conference tournaments might be canceled, they might not have March Madness, and it was like, oh, they'll still find a way to play. And then that was the big hammer, the first hammer that kind of fell of like, it's not happening. Like, wow, this is a real thing. And here we are a year later. So yeah, and I'll be the first one to admit that I have not done a ton of research on the NCAA field. I do know that Duke and Kentucky are not in the tournament this year. So Aggie, just want to we'll sip a drink to that later about those two not being in the tournament, even though UNC will probably get first rounded by Wisconsin.
Actually, I have a stat for that too. I have a stat for that later on at all. Okay.
But yeah, so let's talk about it's obviously been a modified season. Some teams, as Duke, I think Duke even came out and plainly said it, like, we're not going to put our players at risk. We're not going to this and that. People don't feel comfortable playing and all that stuff. And as a result, they had a down year, which I don't think they really cared about, to be honest. But looking at the bracket and kind of seeing modified seasons, some teams only played like 13 games. And it's like, I almost feel like out of all the sports we've had over the last year under coronavirus, this might be the most asterisk because of the fact that all these teams are just not complete teams. There's teams that have had tournaments canceled and missed tournaments because of COVID stuff, and now they're going to have the tournament. We'll see if they can even get through it all, but what do you guys think about that? Do you feel like there's a legitimate favorite? Not all at once.
I would kind of lean towards Gonzaga.
Because they're undefeated, right?
Like you said, they are undefeated. So that's my stat too. So this comes to the credit of our listener, Puddin Crawford. Let me know that the last time that Kentucky and Duke both were not in the tournament was the 75-76 season. And in that year, Indiana was undefeated going into the tournament, and they ran the tournament and won it. Gonzaga is undefeated going in. Gonzaga's going to run it.
We think that Gonzaga's conference is as good as for me personally, I've kind of been following Michigan a little bit this year, but the Big Ten seems to be like they got a lot of good a lot of good teams in it, and Gonzaga goes and plays in a conference where they play like St. Mary's is their toughest competition.
I'm glad you
brought that up.
It's always
hard for me to know.
Yeah, I agree, and I wanted to go into Gonzaga a little bit because they are the quote unquote favorite. I don't think there's a heavy favorite this year, and I don't think they're the heaviest, one of the heavier favorites, and I don't think they're necessarily even this year with the way the years progressed anyway with a watered down season that you could even say a favorite. But if there is one, it's definitely them. They're the number one overall seed, so they get to technically say that. But I will say this about it, because initially I was thinking, man, there's no favorite. But then when I really looked into Gonzaga, like if you look at them, Dan, you're right. The last 5 years, they've pretty much been a one seed in the tournament every year. And obviously that's assisted by the fact that they play in a weaker conference. I will give them their credit. They have established themselves in the last, obviously Mark Few's been there since like 2000, making them putting them on the map as like a Sweet 16 team, ranked every year. But now the last 5 years has been on another level. They're consistently in the top 3 or 4, throughout all the years of the rankings with the recruits they've gotten, but also part of it's the schedule. They usually play pretty good non-conference when the seasons are fully intact, and they usually compete pretty well. But overall, when you basically can automatically go 15-1 or 14-2, because they are a powerhouse, they are up there with all the top programs at this point. But the difference is those top programs have to go through powerhouse schedules every year. So naturally, you're going to lose 3 or 4 most years, give or take. 3 or 4 those powerhouse teams are going to lose 3 or 4 in their league, and they're not going to lose 3 or 4 in their league because they're playing, way weaker, significantly weaker opponents. So are they elite? Are they powerhouse in the last 5 years getting a 1 seed? Yes, absolutely. But it also helps that they don't have to play the gauntlet in a league that plays like the other leagues play.
Right.
So they basically have an easier schedule. So yeah, go schedule like 5 tough non-conferences. But even if you go 3-2 or 4-1 through that, then you basically breeze through your schedule. You might lose 1 or 2 like they probably do every year. So they're basically looking at like 30-4 or 33-2 every year. And so they have it a little bit easier. And like I said, I'm taking nothing away from the fact that they're still a perennial top 5 to 10 program. Yeah. Even if you put them in the ACC, I still think they go like 28-6. You know what I mean? And go like top 10 and probably maybe in that conference. Maybe they're more like a 2 or 3 seed a lot of years than they are a 1 seed. I think it helps them get the 1 seed that they've been getting like every year. Yeah. But this year, I looked at their non-conference. They've beaten West Virginia and Kansas out of the Big 12. And you mentioned, Dan, how strong the Big 10 is, which Big 10 is pretty much consensus-wise the best conference in college basketball this year. Yeah. ACC's down, so the Big 10 is up this year. And the Big 12 is tough. So they beat 2 tough ones out of the Big 12 with West Virginia, Kansas. They beat Iowa out of the Big 10. And so they're undefeated against those 3. That's a pretty good little non-conference. I mean, you're not going to play with so many non-conference tough opponents because there weren't a lot of non-conference games for most programs anyway. So I'll say this might be Gonzaga's best year. Saying all that about, having an easier schedule and as far as them being a 1 seed, they haven't lived up tournament performance-wise. They haven't lived up to being a 1 seed every year. They've only made 1 Final Four. And they went to the championship game that year and lost. But outside of that, they've never made a Final Four. With being a 1 seed that many times, you think maybe they would have done a little bit more with it. But this year, they're undefeated in a weird year where it doesn't seem like they're, some of the powerhouse programs are down, and it's kind of a weird year anyway. This might be the year where Gonzaga could do it.
Yeah. So Puddin wanted to point out that that they have beaten the number 2, 3, and 4 in their bracket during the regular season this year.
Yeah, I did see that. I will say this, though, Aggie, to your stat about thinking that they're going to win it all, and I'll shoot it over to you, Dan, afterwards, so you can kind of talk about who you like. But I saw a stat, because I love my Twitter stats. I saw a stat that said the last 4 teams to enter the tournament undefeated, none of them won it. 2 were bounced in the second round, and 2 were bounced, I think, in the semis. So
I also like Gonzaga's draw. I think UVA might get beat early, so that takes like the Sweet 16 game for them. That might be easier. And I just think I don't know. I think it might be their year.
I like Illinois. I've been seeing them pop up a lot. Thinking people, I guess they haven't really been legitimate since the year they lost to.
I like Oklahoma State. They got the kid Cade Cunningham.
I was actually kind of thinking.
They got the kid Cade Cunningham, who I think is the consensus number 1 overall pick in the draft, and I think he might end up being the player of the year. I know it was AP All-American here just now, I think so. And they're in Illinois' bracket. They're the 4 seed, and a lot of people think that they got way underseeded. A lot of people thought they were maybe a 2, but definitely a 3. And then they're in the 4 seed there, so them and Illinois are kind of headed for a crash course. But Illinois stuff too. I mean, the whole Big Ten was really good this year.
Yeah, Dan, you think Kentucky's going to pull it out?
Yeah, they're gonna definitely win the NNNNIT that they're in. They couldn't even make the NIT.
What about the CIT?
Is NIT 4 teams this year or something? Or
yeah, I heard it was something like that. But in all honesty, it's I'm watching Michigan. There's a player on their team, Eli Brooks. He came out of Spring Grove, which is about 10 minutes away from here.
I did a work camp there and youth group back in the day.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm watching them. I'm not sure what to make of teams like Kansas this year. For whatever reason, it seems like the perennial powerhouses. Yeah, like the perennial powerhouses. I'm just not even sure that they were like in it too much this year just because of COVID. Like it's very odd to me to see all those programs struggle.
It didn't seem like Duke was. I could tell you that.
They didn't care at all. Duke came out, like I said, Duke came out and said it. They were just like, we're not taking this season seriously, basically. Is what they said.
I'm with you, Dan. I'm with you on Michigan.
Like half the ACC was like that, to be honest.
And I mean, and that's kind of why I think maybe this could be the year for Gonzaga, and it'll be a huge asterisk by it. We know that. But this could be their year because of that. But also, Dan, with Michigan, I'm with you with them. I actually thought that they would be the favorite. Really, like I knew that Gonzaga would probably be the number 1 ORC, but I heard so many people talking about like 2 or 3 weeks ago how much they love Michigan and they were the best overall team. And then they go and lose the kid Livers, who started every game for them.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be out. So, and then they lost earlier on than I thought they should have in the conference tournament. So now I'm a little down on them and not liking them as much. But if they can get that figured out, they're good.
Clinton Crawford says Michigan will be the first 1 seed knocked out.
Well, I think that might be true due to their injury.
It's possible. The other thing I want to say is I think Alabama's the SEC choice, and they're pretty solid. Tennessee's pretty solid. I watched a little bit of them this year. So even though Kentucky's not coming out of SEC, there are some teams like Rick Barnes is coaching Tennessee now. My sleeper team is Texas. Shaka Smart.
Oh, I like Texas. I watched them. They just won the Big 12 tournament. I like watching. I watched their semifinal and final. And Shaka, I always like Shaka Smart, man. He can coach.
Me too.
So it seems like he's got it turned around. And I like their team. I like the way they played. But I'm with you on who did you say before that you like, Dan?
So Tennessee and Alabama are down there.
You were just talking about that's what I want to say. The SEC. The SEC outside of Kentucky being way down, it seems like the rest of the programs are up a little bit. Like there's some quality teams that can maybe make a deep run, and usually the SEC is not the strongest basketball conference. So
right.
I think they got some teams outside of Kentucky, and maybe it's because Kentucky's down and it's allowed them to get up a little higher.
It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun not to have the pressure of Kentucky being in it this year. Like, I just watch all the games and I'm like, waiting for Kentucky to play and stressing out. But just to be able to sit back and relax and watch it, it'll actually be a lot of fun.
Even with the asterisks in the kind of just weird format and just I don't know, it's just going to be different. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I don't expect much.
It's always nice to watch, to have basketball to watch for 4 days straight, not like a game will always.
Is the first day tomorrow? Is tomorrow the
first
day?
Well, today there was games, right?
No. The way they're doing it this year is the first 4 games are all on Thursday, and then
Friday, Saturday,
and then
Sunday,
traditional
Monday, right?
first round, which is technically now the second round, starts Friday. So they're going Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
It's weird.
And then they're coming back around next week. Yeah, I guess for extra reasons, probably COVID reasons, I'm sure. It has to be. They're doing it different. I hope they go back to the regular way. I like having that weekday, but you get it on Friday. But then next week it's going to be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then the last round Saturday, Monday, like usual. But a little bit different. Instead of that Tuesday, Wednesday, which usually tonight you get the first 4, and then Wednesday you get 2 more. You're going to get them all 4 on Thursday, and then the bulk of the tournament is to start till Friday.
Yeah, so as we switch on to our last topic of the show, we are going to do some brackets, I think, and we'll be able to share with you guys at least our Final Four predictions of kind of what we're looking at. So we'll have that to show y'all next week, and then by then some of our Final Four picks might already be out. So we'll see what happens. But as we close the show, we do want to talk a little bit about some golf as we're all gearing up for the Masters, which will be next month, which is super exciting that we're already back to the Masters after the fall Masters we had. But let's talk a little bit about the Players' Championship. Trav, why don't you give us like a little 1-minute rundown, because I know you're probably the most well-versed in how it went down.
Yeah, I watched most of the last round, and going into the last round, I was really thinking that Bryson was going to do it again because it's funny. I don't know if y'all watched the Arnold Palmer Invitational I think
that's what it was. It was the Arnold Palmer one.
It was Arnold Palmer's event. I think it's the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Yeah. Anyway, at Bay Hill. And so Westwood and DeChambeau in the final round. And I watched that final round, and you could kind of see, man, Lee Westwood just doesn't really have it to me in crunch time. And so it's coming down to it again. And I kind of was like, well, I just saw this story last week. So if it comes down to these two, which those two were in the final grouping, it's probably going to be DeChambeau. My one hope was JT, man, my guy, Justin Thomas, who I kind of didn't used to like, but I like him now. He was my hope. So he's kind of just plodding along through like 7 or 8 holes. And then come the ninth hole, holes 9 through 12, he goes birdie. He goes birdie, eagle, birdie on 9 through 12 to just take full control of it. Bryson didn't have his best stuff. Westwood played pretty decent, but he just couldn't come in the last few holes there to catch Justin when he kind of went out to it. He couldn't do it. So, Justin Thomas went on an absolute tear. I think they said at the end of the telecast, he was 15 under in his last 35 holes. He actually was just on the cut line when he started out, and he goes 8 under on Saturday to get into contention. And so he starts like 3 back of West. I think he was 10 under and Lee Westwood was 13 under. And so, or maybe he was only 2 back, but he was right there. And so, or not, not right there, but close enough to where I thought he had a chance, because I think he's a much better player than Lee Westwood anyway. Lee Westwood's done a lot of good things, and everyone kind of acts surprised like he's playing this good at golf, but he's always been good. I just don't think he has, like, it's funny to me because when he needed to make some big shots in the Arnold Palmer one and in this one, he couldn't do it, like when it came down to like the last 5 or 6 holes. And he kind of was the same thing in the Players. And then on the last hole, he's down 2 strokes, right? So he basically has to hold out for eagle, which isn't going to happen on the 18. But he hits a good shot anyway, and he has like a 14-footer. And then when like there's no pressure on for birdie, just to finish in solo
Sinks
second.
it.
I mean, which is a pressure.
He
sinks
hits
it.
Yeah.
So it confirmed for me, like, this guy needs to deal with the pressure a little bit better, but he's got the game to do it. But Justin Thomas and Bryson are a little bit more.
Sounds like me and you travel on PGA 2K21. hitting the shots.
We usually get it done. We're just in a bad.
Hey, we are 64-20-6 right now. So
yeah.
So with Lee Westwood, like, listen, we should actually be super grateful for that guy, because there are so many times he was in contention at majors And then we ended up getting to see like Phil win majors that he, and then Tiger beating him so many times. So like we should all just like be thankful for Lee Westwood. He's the guy that was like always threatening the greatness of some of these players that we think are great, but then never could close it out. So now we're like, we have these great players. But anyway, I was just happy to see that JT was able to keep his composure and not yell at the ball and not have any obscenities come out or anything. But it's a good one.
Anybody kicked out of the stands or anything?
I didn't like Justin Thomas that much either, like a few years back. But I've actually started to grow to like him because really, there's only but so many like American golfers that are out there, and he's one of the better ones. And I know that he's pretty close with Tiger and
Ricky.
Anybody that can
Ricky.
Hey,
I love me some
you
Ricky.
guys know.
Does love Ricky.
You guys know anybody that can beat Bryson. If it looks like Bryson might win, I'm for anybody that can take him down. So, but credit to what Bryson's doing. If he keeps on this track, I'll respect more of the hype. You know what I mean? If he keeps this type of stuff going, competing every weekend, winning big tournaments. Arnold Palmer is a pretty big tournament. It's not as big as the Players. As far as non-majors go, they're both pretty good, pretty big tournaments. So for him to compete like that, if he continues this into the Masters and into all this year, I'll understand the hype a little bit more. It's just he wasn't doing that much
before we go, real quick, Juddy, did you guys hear Rory actually say that he was chasing distance?
Dude, that shows Rory's weak mind.
Screwed up his golf. Screwed up his golf.
That shows Rory's
Why
weak
would you do
mindset,
that?
dude.
You don't have to change. That's like the guy that hits the driver on the par 4 330. And he hits it to within 60 yards, and you don't feel confident enough to hit a 120-yard shot on a 220-yard drive.
Right.
So you feel like you have to hit as long as him, and you put it in the woods because of it. Like, why would you do that? Like, the courses aren't unattainable.
The thing,
he had the longest driving distance at the last tournament. Like,
I know.
He doesn't really need to chase distance.
Rory is already known as basically the longest driver, okay? Until the last year when Bryson's basically like, gotten in the gym, which, I mean, who knows what who all knows what gotten into the gym entails. Like, I'm not putting anything out there. I know Brooks Koepka.
Our credibility
Brooks
just went
Koepka
down
has
to
kind
crapper.
of Brooks Koepka has kind of needled a little bit with some jokes about how he may have gotten as big as he's gotten. So who knows what all has gone into that, but you don't have to do all that
Brooks
stuff.
Brooks is just jealous that he's not the buffest one on the tour anymore.
Brooks has done more in his career than Bryson has. Bryson's got a long way to go before he gets to Brooks or Rory. But that's my point with Rory.
I don't disagree. But
look, Rory, you're Rory McIlroy. Like, all you've done, Bryson hasn't done near the stuff that you've done. You think you need to chase him? Like, just play your game, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Bryson's in everybody's head. I love it.
Another guy too that I'm interested to see what happens, and I'm excited for us to have our pre-show of the Masters as well as we preview that in a couple weeks. I want to see what Jordan Spieth does and if he bounces back at all, because I know we're all waiting to see.
Yeah, I'm a Spieth fan.
Yeah, and see what he can do. But that's pretty much going to do it for our show. I believe we will be back next week to talk about some of the NCAA, some more free agency fallout, which will for sure happen this week as well, possibly happening right now as we speak. We just don't know about it. But yeah, thanks for joining us, and be sure to find us and find all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and you can watch this on YouTube and Facebook as well, and you can find us on Instagram as well. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys